Lamar Jackson in the building, ready to take down Patrick Mahomes. They said he's outmatched. Don't tell him that. Game Day View starts now. Welcome to Game Day View presented by Jeep Gladiator. I'm your host, Andrew Hawkins, joined as always by analytics analyst Cynthia Freeland and NFL.com columnist Greg Rosenthal. Listen, we're going to help you make all your decisions in fantasy, all things pools with expertise and insight. We want to hear from you. So if you have any comments, any questions, tweet us and we'll try to answer them throughout the show. Squad, football Sunday, a lot of storylines, a lot of headlines. What are you watching closely?
Well, look, we just saw Lamar Jackson walking in, and I'm actually looking on the other side of the ball in that same game. We got two things going on here. The running back situation. We just saw LaShawn McCoy is active, but he walked in like limping and didn't look like he was 100%. Given the fact that it is pouring rain in Kansas City, that's a really interesting situation to monitor. I mean, look at that right there. That's the parking lot.
He walked
no
in
fun
soaked,
tailgating
too.
there. Everything looks soaked. They did get a tarp on the field. They'll pull it off, but that is a dicey one to watch.
Looks like Ravens weather to me.
I used to hate playing in rain games. Greg, what are you watching for?
The weather's important everywhere, but I'm going out to the West Coast where it should be fine in San Francisco. Mason Rudolph and the Steelers. Mason Rudolph's making his first NFL start today, and there's so much to go in this season. We think like the story's written. Ben Roethlisberger's out. They have this second-year quarterback in. We think we know something about this season. We don't know anything about this season. I'm waiting for this Steelers story to be written. I think they have a chance to bounce back with Mason Rudolph, be a competitive team, get back in the mix.
All right, I'm going to stick with quarterbacks myself. I'm going to go with Taysom and Teddy in New Orleans. I want to see what that mix is like. Usually when you go to another quarterback, there's not as much conversation to say how one or the other one will be used. So I'm interested to see what they have up their sleeve this week in New Orleans and Seattle. I
love that. I actually do think it's going to be a mix. I don't think it's going to be Teddy with a little Taysom. I think we're going to see designed plays just for Taysom's skill set. I think that's actually going to be one of the ways they sneak attack the Seattle Seahawks. All
right, we'll see how it works. Well, you heard what we're looking for. Now it's time to go on the field, starting with Stacey Dales.
The story here in Green Bay really has been the weather. Thunderstorms, lightning, heavy showers throughout the course of the morning with the Denver Broncos coming in for some Sunday football, and it looks like it'll be a very slippery, wet field here at Lambeau. Wet conditions certainly. That rain expected just to continue throughout the course of the day. 70% or so chance of rain at kickoff, 12 local time. The thunderstorms seem to have dissipated. The tarp here at the field started coming off just around 9 a.m. local time, but we will see how both of these teams fare in these conditions here through the course of the day and how that football is affected by this rain as it continues to come down here in Green Bay.
Here in Philadelphia, where Carson Wentz will be without his top two wide receivers in Deshaun Jackson and Alshon Jeffrey, two guys who also might be out this coming Thursday against the Packers. But before we get there, we've got today's game against the Lions, and Nelson Aguilar becomes the Eagles' top wide receiver. He was out here early on the field getting some work. In fact, he was catching passes being thrown by GM Howie Roseman, who chucked a couple toward Aguilar, then walked away and made a joke to our producer, Jason Hartelius. He said, quote, "the more you can do." That's usually something that players talk about when they want to hang around long enough. Howie Roseman's got some job security here for sure. One other wide receiver who needs to step up today, Mac Hollins, usually a special teamer, but he's going to be a big part of the offense. He was out there working barefoot. We haven't seen that since last week in Antonio Brown. Hopefully it works out better for Hollins than it has for Brown.
Hey guys, as you can tell, not sure if the HD cameras that we use show this, it is pouring here, and it has been pouring all morning, and it's expected to rain throughout the day. They've taken the tarp on, and then they've taken it off, and then they've put it back on. They are dealing with this weather and this heavy rain, but this is a field that has been able to handle the elements in the past. Now, how is this going to impact how Patrick Mahomes and Lamar Jackson throw the football? That's yet to be seen until we kick off. But remember, the Chiefs running back room, a little banged up. Damian Williams out with a knee injury. And then when you look at LaShawn McCoy, who I walked into the stadium with, limping considerably, he is a game-time decision with an ankle injury. Guys?
All right, thanks, James. Like I said, he got the report that LaShawn McCoy is playing. KC favored by 6.5 in this one in Arrowhead. We'll make our picks for this and all the other games later. But first, weather has to affect this game, right?
You know what? The only thing the weather doesn't affect seems to be James Palmer's hair. It actually looks better.
Looking good. Very
Pro.
professional.
Look better with the rain.
I
somehow.
know. I mean, I 99.
Doesn't make sense.
99 rating for hair.
I think
Exactly.
if you're a defensive player, if you're anyone on the Ravens, I think you welcome the rain. I mean, a game like this takes away that long passing, takes away the aerial show that is the Kansas City Chiefs to some degree. Doesn't mean they're not going to be throwing deep, but I'd rather be the team that has the history of defense, that has Earl Thomas in the back end, that has the running game that dominated the league a year ago.
Although the one thing I will say, Chris Jones last week really impressed me. Watching him from the interior, looking like Aaron Donald out there, really getting after the quarterback, that's an interesting dynamic because when you look at how Greg Roman architected the offense for Lamar Jackson, it's rushes to the outside, so he has more one-on-ones. But this is like doesn't even have time for that. So I'm interested to see how these fronts hold up and these O-lines. Remember, low-key thing, we forget Eric Fisher not playing today for Kansas City, so that could be a problem too. So I agree. That's like the trenches are a big deal. The running is a big deal. Everything.
You hated
really,
the rain, didn't you?
I hated the
shady
rain.
jogging out here.
Yeah, I mean,
Okay,
That,
all
I mean,
right.
that's a perfect shot because I think when the rain games come, I typically lean towards the teams with the better rushing game because even for the receivers, it's hard getting a handle on the football. For the quarterback, it's harder to grip, throw. So teams kind of rely on that run game a little bit. And for Mahomes, a guy who throws it all over the field, I'm curious to see how this is going to affect him.
So overall statistics, not necessarily Patrick Mahomes statistics, will show you that when it's a lot of rain for a sustained amount of time, so when the ball is wet and when there's gusty winds, that's when you start to see a big difference. If there's just like a little bit of sprinkling, it doesn't typically affect outcomes. Now, that's not saying that Patrick Mahomes will be affected in that. That's just saying overall across the entire league that happens. I didn't mean to cut you off.
Oh, no worries. Through 2 games, I don't know if we know what this Chiefs running game is going to be. It was great last year. We haven't really seen Shady and Damian Williams.
Well,
and
we're
if
not
they
going to
use
see Damian Williams.
Darwin Thompson, today in the mix. Like, we haven't seen them go off like they did a year ago.
Right. Okay, we'll get to our picks there in a minute. I think it's time to go to Falcons at Indianapolis. Colts are favored by 1.5 in this one. Cynthia, we'll start with you. What are you watching for?
Well, we just saw that T.Y. Hilton active, Marlon Mack active. Those two things do make a big difference in this matchup because you remember on the other side of the ball, we've got a few missing pieces that we already knew about. So Falcons O-line is banged up. That's not changing. So now that we have Mack in and the O-line for the Colts, that's a big deal to me. Just a little tease right there. A little tease for you.
Little tease. What you got, Greg?
The Colts running game is what the Falcons want to do, and maybe the Falcons can get back to running because Indianapolis is without Darius Leonard today. He is out with a concussion. That is a big-time loss.
Huge.
And Matt Ryan's been a little up and down this year. You know who he reminds me of? He reminds me of when he was coached by Dirk Cotter last time around. He takes more chances. He makes more big plays. He's a little more fun to watch, but ultimately, I think he's a little less effective. It's that Matt Ryan that you don't know who's going to show up every week.
I'm just worried about Matt Ryan in the red zone. Every time I get in there, I'm like, oh, don't turn it over.
I know.
Don't do it.
I mean, the Falcons' offense, they're known for kind of their high-flying and passing ability, but how does that affect them if this game is slowed down tremendously with the Colts' running game?
You know what? It really magnifies the impact of the Falcons' defense,
Okay.
right? And we saw 2 different defenses.
Yep.
Week 1, we saw, okay, you can just run all over us, Minnesota Vikings. Go for it. Week 2, all right, Eagles, we got a little something for you. So it's just they looked completely different. So will the Keanu Neal and the Deion Jones, will that matter? Yes, I hope so, because then we see a more evenly matched game. But I don't know which one shows up.
They got to have Devonta Freeman show up for the Falcons running game. I mean, they paid him a lot of money about 3 years ago. He's been injured the last couple of years. They're waiting for it to happen, but in the meantime, they're using Ito Smith, who's probably looked a little better than Devonta Freeman through 2 weeks.
So far this season. All right, I think it's time now to jump to some notable actives and inactives for our early slated games. What's jumping out to you here?
Trent Brown, to me, being active is massive news for the Raiders. I'm very curious to see if they can be competitive. I don't think they would have had a chance without Trent Brown, but he can do a good job protecting Derek Carr.
I just want to make a note for fantasy owners of LaShawn McCoy. We saw the Damian Williams news earlier this week, and you're like, okay, 100% McCoy, let's go. Beware. This is a buyer beware. This is because the weather is nasty. He didn't look good walking in, so that's a little dicier for me. So just if your fantasy purposes, maybe look elsewhere.
Okay. No Alshon Jeffrey for the Eagles today. James White is having a baby. There was no
Yeah.
injury there. He's
How about
becoming a
a
father.
kinder, softer Bill Belichick, letting people miss
I
games
know.
to babies 2 out of 3 weeks this year? He's like, I'm good.
All right,
All
look,
Love your family.
Michael Gallup being out. I know that game's supposed to be pretty lopsided in favor of the Cowboys. You could look there for some wide receiver depth if you're looking for your fantasy purposes there. And of course, Devin Singletary being out. I'm going to talk about that later. But remember, Frank Gore, one of my favorite running
Frank
backs
Gore,
in the
okay.
league. He's in. He's playing.
All right. Coming up next on Game Day View, presented by Jeep Gladiator, Carson Wentz.
Some good stretching there.
Stretching it
Get
out.
loose.
What's he going to do?
Get loose.
We'll talk about that after the break. Your man Dak on the field, getting ready today, looking to continue his rip so far in the 2019 season. He's bigger than I think people realize.
That looks like a man who knows he's playing the Dolphins today.
Also a man who knows he's going to get paid, maybe after beating down on Miami.
I'm confused about those zippers, but okay. That's not his fault.
All right, now it's time to get to some individual performances here with Cynthia Freeland and more or less. Rex Burkhead, what do you got for me?
I think he's going to rush for more than 43 yards against the Jets. James White, wife having a baby, he's not playing, means more opportunity for Rex, who actually leads this league in rushing yards. This is an interesting pick because we never know what Josh McDaniels, Bill Belichick, and company have up their sleeves in terms of which running back will run the rock. But I think it's a good pick here. Rex Burkhead, it's only 43 yards.
Do you have sources within, the White family that you knew a baby was coming? Because you had this days ago. You're on top of things.
Listen, Mama White, we got
That
it.
model is wild.
They don't call me the expert for nothing. All right, next we have Larry Fitzgerald, the great one. What do you got for him?
Well, he needs 10 to make a historic mile marker. He's not going to get 10 receptions in this game, but he is going to get more than 5. So I think it's a really nice pickup. Again, fantasy purposes. I actually, in certain leagues, had to drop Antonio Brown. Larry Fitz was a substitute for one. Who would have thought?
Who would have thought?
Who would have thought?
What do you got for me, Greg? Here?
Well, they play so fast. That's one of the underrated things about the Cardinals. They get more plays than every other team. So more plays, more catches.
And he's going to do it at home against Carolina. It's very poetic, All right, next one. You want one more?
Yeah, sticking with the OG thing. We got Jason Witten.
Yep.
Who you got for me?
You know who's going to score a touchdown today? Jason
Ooh.
Witten.
I love it. I love it.
3 for 3. I love it. It's not going to be a huge day in terms of number of targets, number of, total yards. But the thing that matters, the end zone, that's going to happen.
Okay.
You like it?
I love it.
All
I
right,
love
good.
it. Sticking with the OGs. I'm an OG myself, so I appreciate it.
I like the OGs. I'm an OG.
I mean, you're younger than Jason Witten.
I'm
that's
younger
for
than
sure.
Jason Witten. Yes.
I know we're all younger than Jason Witten. All right, on to Cleveland, where the Browns are back in the prime time on Sunday Night Football this time, hosting the Rams. Browns, home dogs, no pun intended, as the Rams are favored by 3 points here. The thing I'm looking for, and it's not as sexy, especially with two incredible receiving cores battling each other on prime time, I'm going interior offensive line.
Ah!
Yes, I want to see if Aaron Donald takes advantage of this interior line.
Garrett.
Baker hasn't done well against pressure from the inside either. So I think that's going to be a huge mismatch. I hate to say it. No Zeitler, they've done okay, but they're facing the best interior lineman probably ever.
Yeah, yes, I'm with you.
No argument. The Rams defense quietly looked better this year, I think, than they did last year. Partly because of their safeties right now. If you look at John Johnson, they have the rookie Taylor Rapp and Eric Weddle. Those three are playing almost all starter snaps.
Yep.
That's just going to prevent the big plays that the Browns want to hit, and it lets Wade Phillips just do all sorts of stuff with those three guys in the back end.
And on the other side, it's kind of the same argument. Myles Garrett is scary. So scary.
Yes.
And we've seen Jared Goff be under more pressure this season than last season. That's going to have an impact. For me, I really think that means a lot more Todd Gurley, who people were questioning the first game. They're like, where's Todd Gurley? Why aren't they using him? Whatever. I think ultimately Todd Gurley has been excellent and kind of quietly excellent. And I think that's going to be a huge factor in this one.
Well, I think this is a perfect place to start our picks, and we'll start with you here, Cynthia. What do you got?
I got the Rams taking this one. I'm sorry. I feel bad.
It's okay.
I'm actually not
feel
that
bad.
bad. 27-23 is a projection, just 4 points. So it's going to be a close one, a really fun one. I'm actually very much looking forward to watching this game. But I think the Rams, Todd Gurley, that ability to just establish the run and control the clock, and then Wade Phillips.
Yeah.
And there's missing pieces on the Browns defense.
You feel bad. I'm a Browns homer, and I'm picking the Rams
man.
as well. My son was so upset with me, who's a huge Browns fan. But I'm going with the Rams
What's
as
his
well.
name?
Austin.
Austin.
Yeah, I know.
Keep it coming.
He's been killing me all week. I felt good about the Rams pick earlier in the week, and then with the injuries the Browns have faced, I feel even better about
You
it.
Browns
So I'm
fans
still
are
sticking
so
with them.
fatalistic.
I know,
They're
man.
1-1. You're giving up. You're thinking, what's the most painful way we can possibly lose this week? I think it's with a last-second kick where the Rams win by 1 or 2. It's that close, and then Cleveland goes home, and goes out to the bars.
Okay, yeah, that's how we end every night. All right, next we're going KC. Chiefs favored by 6.5 over the Ravens. Cynthia, what's your projection here?
Look, this just actually shifted down because of the weather.
Okay.
So be mindful. These things matter. These last-minute adjustments, they really do have an impact on the game. So if you look at modeling, it's going to give you an unsexy result with like 22 points of it. So we're going to round it. We're going to go 26-23. So close one, lot less points than I originally had modeled for this one, but that wet ball makes a big difference.
Yeah, I'm going to go Chiefs still. I think just because Mahomes, when he plays a team twice, and the Ravens kind of gave him fits last year, once he plays a defense that he's already had and struggled with, he usually is lights out. Even with the weather, I'm sticking with the Chiefs. Greg, what do you got?
I am, but I think it'll be as close as Cynthia said. If you looked at what the Ravens game did last year when they played the Chiefs, their running game had the Chiefs backing up, confused, not knowing who to take. And I think it's even better this year with Mark Ingram and Lamar Jackson adding that threat to pass.
All right, love it. Next we'll
By
go.
the way, one
Go
thing
ahead.
before we get on that, Mark Andrews is active. There's a whole bunch of tight end questions in fantasy. Mark Andrews is active, meaning play him. Put him in. Play him.
him in.
Of course. Yes.
All right,
Just
perfect.
making sure.
Let's go Falcons and Colts. Colts favored by 1.5 in this one, Cynthia.
Colts. The
Colts.
Colts take this one.
Okay.
I think it's an interesting one. Look, this one feels like a toss-up in many ways, but I actually have 1 point, 24-23. I think the Colts, that run game with T.Y. active, with Marlon Mack active, their O-line, I actually like their defensive front even more than I thought I would in the beginning of the season. I just think they have the edge, especially at home. But we don't have to worry about weather in this one. That's one plus.
Very true. I had a coin flip in this one, and I went with the Colts. I gave the nod to the offensive line in Indianapolis. I think they're going to give us the Falcons defense that we've seen in week 1, unfortunately. Greg, what do you got?
I feel like this is a bad sign. We're all taking the Colts.
That means
in a coin
100%
flip
it's going to
game.
be 100%.
But
it's gonna be
Jacoby
Falcons
Brissett,
then.
you give him a chance to go make a game-winning drive. I think he goes and makes it at home. I think this is a team in Indianapolis that town is going to fall in love with.
Speaking of tight ends, Jack Doyle, fully playable in fantasy for this one because everyone's looking for a tight end. Jack Doyle.
Jack
That's how
Doyle.
Matt Money Smith says
My
it.
favorite tight end name. All right, next we got Broncos and Packers. Packers favored by 6.5. Cynthia, what's your projection?
Okay, we got a lot of rain. We've got missing pieces along the Broncos O-line. This is not a great, necessarily, situation for Denver to go all the way to Lambeau. For me in this one, I have Denver taking it, or I'm sorry, Green Bay winning 26-19.
26-19. I'm going Green Bay too. I think the one of the biggest surprises of this season has been the Green Bay defense, and I think they continue that with the weather.
No Dwan James on the right. Yee!
Yeah,
Yikes.
I think they're gonna pound on the Broncos. What do you got, G?
But the Packers offense, I have the Broncos losing the game. But again, I think it's going to be a field goal game, especially because of the weather, where it's ugly. The Packers offense, I think, is going to struggle to move the ball. So don't be surprised if this looks a little bit like Bears-Broncos a week ago, where the game's in the teens.
I only have 7, so it's not like it's like, ridiculous.
Right,
7.
right.
Nice
Okay.
control.
On to Seattle, where no Drew Brees for the Saints means the Seahawks are favored by 4 in this one. A lot of storylines here. What do you got? What's your projection, Cynthia?
I think 4 is about right. I have 24-20 in the model. But remember, model's like there's a little bit of rounding there. So it does actually kind of veer a little bit closer. So more like 24-21 if you're going to kind of keep the most up-to-date rounding. So a closer one in Seattle than you might imagine.
Okay, I'm going to go with the Seahawks. I know the Saints are talking about the dual quarterback situation. I don't think those ever work, and when they do, it takes a little bit to get going. So I'm sticking with the Seahawks. Greg, what do you got?
Yeah, I have the Seahawks too. I think this is the most fascinating game of the afternoon. Prove me wrong, Teddy Bridgewater. Show up and have that MVP moment, Alvin Kamara. I picked him to win MVP before the season. This is the type of game that, you just take over when you're starting quarterbacks out.
The interesting thing here is the one thing that you can impress your friends with. We're going to teach you right here on DBVU.
Always.
Well, the Saints stayed up in Seattle. So they've had the entire week to sit in hotel rooms to create just specific mismatches. The Seahawks secondary is targetable, so I don't think it's going to be they're not going to get steamrolled. I think it's going to be an interesting.
They've been playing a lot of late night Madden.
A lot of Madden. Fortnite, actually, I think.
Right? All right, next we have the 49ers and the Steelers. The Niners favored by 6.5 over Pittsburgh. What's your projection, Cynthia?
Okay, so 6.5 dicey. I have 6. San Francisco 26. Pittsburgh 20. So I think it's more like one of those games where it's a little bit closer than maybe Niners fans think. They're like 2-0, we're going to the Super Bowl, baby.
Right.
But I think it's still the Steelers. I still think the Steelers, and I think with Minkah Fitzpatrick joining this team, it's a big deal to stop that run that Kyle Shanahan can do.
I'm going with the 49ers. I have serious doubts about Pittsburgh's offense, and I know there are a bunch of young players that are talented. It's going to take them a while to get their chemistry. Still sticking with San Fran in this one. G, what do you got?
I like the Steelers in an upset. This is one of those games I think we've overreacted too much to the first 2 weeks of the season. You see both of these organizations kind of revert to form. Steelers finish it out.
They have 9 first-rounders on their defense.
The Steelers.
The Steelers.
So get it done, Mike Tomlin.
9.
They can do it.
That's a lot.
That's almost 10. That's
that
ridiculous.
Like,
how many people
that
play at the same
10.
time? 11? That's like a ridiculous amount.
That's a good point. All right, well, next we have Tom Brady in the building. I don't know if this is a fashion statement with the untucked flap.
Everyone in Boston's going to work like that tomorrow.
Hawk, you told us this was intentional.
I
this
do
is the
think
thing
so.
now.
He's the swag god, man.
I mean, I'm
He
clearly
can't do
not
that.
fashionable enough to even know that, so you do.
It's like in Mean
He's not
Girls.
doing anything by mistake. There's no way he's doing that by
Pat's heavy
mistake.
favorites, 22 points here. Let's go on the field with Mike Giardi.
The decision to release Antonio Brown was far from unanimous and far from easy. Robert Kraft always empowers Bill Belichick and his football people to make those sorts of football decisions. But the text messages to the second accuser, done as a New England Patriot, was too much for the owner. He pushed hard after Brown practice on Friday to cut ties with him. The coaching staff still wanted to work with the player. They felt he had done a good job of meshing in with the system and the culture. But at the end of the day, the Krafts won and Brown is out.
The Cowboys won't have wide receiver Michael Gallup today after undergoing knee surgery this week. In his place, they'll have Devin Smith, who we saw score last week against the Redskins. But let's also not forget they have Amari Cooper on this roster, a guy that has just seen his chemistry with Dak Prescott improve since last year. In fact, he already has a touchdown in each of the last 2 games and is on pace for another 1,000-yard season. When he was asked about the chemistry between them, he said, you know what, some foods just go together. And he said, it's not the best analogy, but they're sort of like ketchup on a burger. So then I had to ask him, all right, well, what do you have to have on your burger? And it was nothing too crazy. He said lettuce, tomatoes, pickles, but he said extra pickles. That's the important part. Guys, back to you.
Greg is the extra pickles of our group.
He is the extra pickles. All right, here goes some more Week 3 projections from us. Looks like we're pretty aligned here, except for my Homer Bengals pick.
Wow, I like a lot of home teams, apparently.
Yeah. Week 3 home teams.
One of these road teams got to pull an upset. If you had to just choose one.
Hawk went with Cincinnati.
I think Detroit going to Philadelphia.
I'm not going to
with
lie
so
to you.
many injuries. I'd be worried if I'm an Eagles fan.
Look, that's the math. My heart is like, oh gosh, the Lions are going to win and give me more hope. That's what happens. They just give me a little bit of hope.
All right. Out.
No
Well,
Sean.
we all picked the
None of
Vikings.
Seans.
Here, speaking of the Vikings, here goes Adam Thielen. It's like Thielen from a baby. See what I did there? More Game Day View presented by Jeep Gladiator after this quick timeout.
So cute.
Travis Kelce with the slow-mo walk-in. That's how you know it's swag when they slow down the entry.
Calves.
Look at him. It looks like he's on a runway.
He knows he's in slow-mo.
He does. It's probably not even in slow-mo. He's probably just walking in that way for the effect.
That's incredible.
All right, here goes some more of our picks for week 3.
Oh, good. I'm glad I don't like all home teams.
What's jumping out here?
Wait a minute. Both of you have Washington?
Yeah,
Shush.
I like
Shush.
Washington.
Tell me the good play that Mitchell Trubisky's made this year.
It's called defense.
No, that isn't.
Right. They were a lucky
Sometimes
field
the best
goal,
offense
a
is a
lucky
good
play
defense,
call away
you know?
from losing in Denver. I think they'll lose in Washington.
And what about Panthers and Cardinals?
Kyle Allen making his
I wanna change my
second
Panthers
NFL
pick.
start.
You're changing your pick?
I'm actually going with Philadelphia. All right, but now it's time for our Best in Class presented by Jeep Gladiator. We're going to tell you who we think is going to go off today, starting with Cynthia Freeland. What do you got?
You know, I'm going with the OG. I'm keeping it all OG
I love
today.
the OG thing.
Frank Gore. You hear
Oh,
me?
yeah.
Oh, that's
Devin
super OG.
Singletary not playing. The matchup against Cincinnati is a tasty one for running backs. And you know who's going to score a touchdown?
Frank Gore.
Frank
yeah,
Gore.
maybe even 2.
Look at him run it over to put the game away last week.
Look,
Love
the
it.
change of direction behind the line of scrimmage, something fun to track in computer vision. Yes, I'm being super dorky right
Yeah,
now,
give it
but
to
it's
me.
really fun because he's like a little video game. Like, oh, I went left, I went right.
That's Frank Gore, OG. Greg, what do you got?
I have Philip Dorsett stepping out today for the Patriots. No one was happier than Philip Dorsett when they announced that Antonio Brown was released on Friday. Dorsett quietly been making some really tough catches. His chemistry's improved with Tom Brady. He's looked good this year. He's the guy that put them in the Super Bowl by catching that pass in the AFC Championship. And now without Brown, he's going to be on the field basically every snap. Think he has a big day.
Yeah, good secondary to target in the Jets
Absolutely.
too.
Leave it to the Patriots to get the most out of a first-round pick. I am going with Smokey Brown, John Brown in Buffalo. We got 2 Buffalo players for our Best in
We're
Class.
all in on Buffalo.
I think he's going to go off. He's
Bills
had
Mafia,
7
are you hearing us?
Bills
we love
Mafia.
you.
He's had at least 7 catches in his first 2 weeks, and even last year when he played the Cincinnati secondary, He went off in that first game. I think it continues this week, even though I have the Bengals winning the game.
You have the Bengals winning the game, but you know what? I know who's on your fantasy team, Josh Allen. He's a great pick this week.
I like that. You've seen it because you set my lineup.
I know.
All right, speaking of fantasy, why don't we go to some tweets and questions here.
From you.
From Lance Starr. Cynthia, I need help.
1,000,000% Mac.
Mac or Lindsay?
Mac.
I already have
Mac.
CMC.
Mac. Lindsay has a horrible weather game.
You okay?
In a horrible match.
All right, would you drop Will Fuller or Robbie Anderson to pick up Hardman or Deebo Samuel in a full PPR league?
Yes, I would drop I would 100% drop Robbie Anderson. And then
Robbie
I would
Anderson?
100%, and then I would go pick up probably Mecole Hardman.
All right. There you have it. The expert has spoken. That does it for us on Game Day View presented by Jeep Gladiator. Keep it locked right here, literally on this set for Fantasy League One
Fantasy League One
at
comes up.
12:30 p.m. on NFL.com.